Hello and welcome to another episode of Fantasy Reality. In this episode, let's talk a little bit about knights, samurai, and armor in general, for that matter. One big question is always asked is, if a knight and a samurai got into a fight, who would win? Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't know the answer to that one. Because a number of questions would arise. What era are the knight and samurai from? What armor are they going to be wearing? What weapons are they going to be using? Kind of need to know a little bit more. These sort of questions need to be asked. That being said, in my opinion, I think that at least by the end of the 15th century, the armor of the knight might have been superior to that of the samurai. Now, the reason I'm making that guess is because by this point in time, about the 1500s, like 1530s or so, the Dutch and Portuguese were trading with the Japanese, and during this trade they introduced the arquebus, which is essentially a primitive matchlock, and that changed warfare in Japan considerably. Another thing that it changed was the armor that the samurais tended to wear. Before that, they had what looked like the armor seemed to be more jointed, or different. They might have had small plates of armor, but after the Dutch and Portuguese showed up, they started wearing what looks to be European-style plate cuirasses. Now, whether or not they would have gone to wearing the full plate armor that knights of that era wore, I don't know. And the reason why I think they started wearing this plate cuirass to protect themselves is because the captains and the officers on these ships might have been just wearing these cuirasses. Because I don't know how good wearing a full plate of how good wearing full plate armor on board a ship would be, if you're including covering the legs and the arms. But you wear a cuirass for the front and possibly the back. Well, you're at least going to protect the heart and the lungs and these organs effectively from most bladed weaponry, most bladed weapons, most firearms, most weapons of the era. And I'm guessing that the Japanese, upon seeing these captains and the other European officers wearing this stuff, they might have realized there might be some sort of advantage, and I wouldn't be too surprised if they tested this out on a couple of condemned criminals. Had one wearing the European-style armor, and had one wearing the traditional Japanese armor, and shot both of them in the chest with these new arquebuses. And if the guy wearing the European stuff survived, he probably lost his head soon afterwards. And since the Europeans did good, question is how good the traditional Japanese armor did. Well, there's a reason that they decided to use European style stuff. So I'm guessing that the traditional Japanese armor did not hold up too well. But that's just my guess and my inference. Maybe they thought it was cool. Maybe they did realize that it was indeed a superior form of protection. Or maybe they thought, and we do things for a reason. We change our armors for one reason or another. Now, like I said, now, as for who would be superior overall, knight or samurai, I will be honest, I do not know. And now, if somehow this was a fantasy world and Japan during the medieval ages was transported right next to Europe, because of magic or some sort of phenomenon that caused Japan to be much more accessible to Europe, well, to be honest, I would not be too surprised if their armor changed. And likewise, I wouldn't be too surprised if the armor of the Europeans also changed a bit. Because people are not stupid. If we see something that would give us an advantage, we're going to take it. We want every advantage we can have. And especially when we're trying to protect ourselves and kill the other guy. But, and besides, as it is, armor evolves over time regardless. And it will change regardless of if the person wearing it are samurai or the person wearing it is a knight. Or if someone wearing it is in a job that is potentially dangerous, such as being a soldier, although other positions that are somewhat risky, potentially life-threatening, well, some of it might surprise you a little bit. And the definition of armor could be a little bit broader than just the stuff worn by military men. I mean, as it is, police officers, they wear protection. They kind of have to, because they're out there risking their lives trying to protect us. Say nothing about security guards. They, too, are risking their lives to protect the business. Most of them wear some sort of body armor. And construction workers, and those who, well, I'll be honest, in a sense, I do have a form of body armor. Well, not body armor, technically, it doesn't protect this. But what I do have protects my eyes. And in a sense, the glasses I am currently wearing could, theoretically, stretched, could be considered a type of armor. As you might have noticed, these are kind of tinted black, because these are a form of tinted glasses, which darken when there's a lot of light, and that helps me to see. Now let me show you the glasses I wear at work. Now, the place I work at is just a factory, and all I am is, I'm just the guy that picks up the trash, that sort of stuff, minimum wage job. But, because of what I deal with, notice a little bit of a difference? I got these side shields. That's so that way when the particles from, say, dust, little pieces of metal, little pieces of plastic, and the like, get swept up towards me, flung at me, whatever, these will protect the sides of my eyes and a little bit of my face. Meaning, the company does not have to worry about me losing the use of my eyes, and I don't need to worry too much about anything that would be, a little crazy, And, in a sense, that is a very minimal form of armor. And again, if you're stretching the definition of armor, a hat with a bit of a bill like this could also be qualified as a low-grade form of armor, because it helps shade the sun from my eyes, which means that trust me, I've found this to be quite useful when I'm trying to film in the evening and the sun's right over there and it's right in my eye. This makes it a little bit easier. Which is why a lot of us wear what's known as, why a number of people wear baseball-styled caps. Or anything that's got a good brim, so that way you don't have to stick your hand right here to try and shade your eyes from the sun's glare. And you can even look at sports as a way of showing off how armor evolves. I mean, let's take a look at American-style football. About 100 years ago, the kind of protection they were wearing, not a little more than a leather helmet thing. And if my brother, who played football for many years, was here, he'd tell you that didn't provide a whole lot of protection. But these days, you take a look at the NFL, you take a look at college, you take a look at high school football, you take a look at most football and most levels from grade school on up. You got helmets, you got shoulder pads, you got chest pads. I think you even have knee pads. I'd have to double check. But, and even that has changed over time. For instance, the helmet may, like I said, just protect your head. But these days you have face protection as well, which is useful because you're going to be rolling around and you might end up finding yourself in the ground, because you got tackled, and you might want to protect your face from things like rocks and sticks and those random pieces of garbage that somehow end up that the guys didn't pick up before the game started. And also, don't forget, you got guys with cleats, and you might want to protect your face from an accidental kick. And that sort of stuff. And basically any position in a sport where you might get hit by a flying object, it's a good idea to wear some sort of, quote, armor. When I was in school, one of the things we had was hockey. Gym hockey. It wasn't like we ran around wearing skates or anything like that. But you still got a bunch of guys with sticks and a little flying disc. And I tended to be the goalie because I wasn't that fast. And what I did have to wear was chest protection and leg protection. I don't know if I wore a helmet because of, life issues and that sort of stuff. But, still. Protection on your legs and the chest is because you got a disc flying at you. You might want something to protect your chest. And also you got guys with sticks. If they try to, you're struggling with them with this trying to keep that puck from going into the goal, you might want to protect your legs in case they accidentally smack you. And let's go to helmets in general. I've done a lot of bicycling, and one thing I've been doing over the last 8 years or so is horseback riding. And the one thing I'm always wearing is a helmet. And that is, to protect your head, because you fall off the horse. You might want something to protect this. And your because your skull bones ain't going to protect your everything else unless there's a bit of a cushion. And that's what a helmet does. That is the function of a helmet. And in any situation is to protect your head. And a good helmet has padding to allow that's going to be somewhat annoying, because I'm not going to try and bother with fixing that up. Take me a little bit of time. But anyways, let's continue on. Like I said, a good helmet, or indeed any armor, Its job is to protect the wearer. And as an example I've used, my glasses, such as these tinted shaded ones, as well as my prescription work glasses, which have side shields, they do the job. Now, I work inside, so there's that. So I don't need to worry about tinted prescription safety glasses. On the other hand, if I was a construction worker who worked outside, I would not be too surprised if they've made tinted safety glasses, which have the side shields. And now, a couple of guys at the place I work at, they do a bit of welding or where they're working real close with machinery, and they have that full mask thing while they're busy welding to protect their face from the bright flash, and of course to protect it from little pieces of metal getting flung up and hitting their face. And in a lot of games, well, that's important, and in a lot of our sporting equipment, would that actually, well, like I said, armor, the job of it is to protect the wearer. And since armor tends to be utilized by most every soldier or fighter, obviously it does the job. And should an armor not be able to cut the mustard anymore, then the armor needs to be changed, as I mentioned earlier with the Japanese, who started using European-style cuirasses to protect their chest from musket balls. Well, basically, when you try to, armor is always going to be changed. It's always changed. It changes over time. And like I meant, utilizing football as an example, it started off simply with a leather helmet type thing, but now it's evolved into shoulder pads, chest protection, knee protection. Wouldn't be too surprised if there's elbow protection here. And of course the helmet itself has changed to have a bigger cushion and that face guard. And that similar sorts of situations occurred where combat armor was concerned. And one could argue that that the introduction of firearms killed off armor. Not true. Armor was still being worn for a long time. In fact, it's still being worn in one form or another. For instance, a lot of officers, granted, the common foot soldier didn't wear armor for the most part, especially because it was cost prohibitive. But officers, they did wear armor because they're on a horse. Oh, look at that fella! I got him! He ain't wearing the red coat. Well, wait, but actually it's just a lot more red now. So so you want to protect yourself? These officers, they would wear armor. As funny as it sounds, but they wore protection as best as they could. And in many cases, said armor was actually good enough to stop musket balls. Of course, since they're on a horse, well, they didn't need to worry too much about mobility because they're already on a horse. And again, also, cavalrymen, they too would wear armor. Granted, they might not have worn the armor on their arms and legs, but they made sure to wear armor on their chest. And because, as I said, you got to deal with your lungs, you got to deal with your heart, you got your stomach, your liver, your intestines, your kidneys, and all them other things that you might want to protect. After all, you could probably survive getting shot in the leg, shot in the arm, and, well, you probably want something to protect your head because you got this. But in many cases, they at least made sure to protect the vital organs. Now, let's take a look at fantasy. And let's get back to the knight and let's get back to the samurai. Because usually, if you want to, quote, set your place in the European style area, you just call your guys knights, give them and you give them armor that looks like a European style knight. Likewise, if you're setting your story in an Asian style land, you know, you give your guys armor that looks Asian, and Japanese and samurai style armor is quite distinctive. Especially, and now I'd have to take a look at Chinese armor a little bit, but Knights of Samurai quite popular enough that everyone, they see samurai armor, they think the guy's wearing it is a samurai, and likewise they see a guy wearing what looks like the armor of a knight, they think that guy's a knight. And of course, in a way, both these guys are quite similar styles, classes. Both of them originally being warrior servants, basically, who served a lord of some sort, who usually was either nobility, had money, or was just plain important. And of course, over time, the knight and samurai classes became solidified, and in many cases, in order to be a knight or a samurai, you had to actually be born into the family of the knight or the samurai. Although there's always those exceptions. Although, well, you have these self-proclaimed knights and self-proclaimed samurai, but that's usually only in fiction, and it's more of a modern invention and in stories where that are set that were actually created back then, such people would be considered comical, inept, and not really all that good at what they did, because there's a bit of values dissonance, especially where it's like they consider, basically it's like you just didn't jump up from one class to another, from being a peasant on up to being a knight. You just didn't do it, because you were supposed to accept your lot in life, apparently. But these days you have stories about, I mean, let's take a look at the Heath Ledger movie A Knight's Tale. Basically, that guy, what he was a squire to a knight who died. And technically, William Thatcher, our protagonist, he's not even a knight for most of the movie. But instead, basically invents a false identity and competes under said false identity as a knight, as Sir Arthur of Wiltshire. I'm certainly butchered that. And And of course you have that rival, Adamir, who figures out, oh, he's not a knight. And basically he could, and legally he could probably have him be shamed to show off the fact that he's not a knight. And of course it's only thanks to Prince Edward, whom William Thatcher had met and had at least given the courtesy of a joust, despite finding out that, oh, given that's the prince, this might be an issue. Oh, we need to withdraw. Now I'm going. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, he's giving me a challenge. Great. Dun, 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 dun. You know, can't really blame Edward too much. Because he didn't want to lose, because he didn't want to win by default. And of course, he repaid that kindness in later by declaring that William was indeed a knight, and that his family just had been long impoverished. Which, and as for impoverished nobility, that does exist. And, you know, your family might have originally been extremely wealthy, but then someone starts gambling and chasing anything in a skirt. Hey, skirt! Yeah. You know. And then, well, comes down to you, and you're left with nothing. And you're trying to build yourself back up. But, I digress. Knight and samurai. Now, I don't know if it was... Now, you did have soldiers, like men-at-arms, who wore armor that was similar to that of a knight, because they were soldiers, highly paid, decently paid ones, compared to your common peasant who might be lucky to just use a woodman's axe as a weapon. Then you have, for Japanese, you had the Arigashu, who, again, are essentially light foot soldiers, for the most part. Again, I'm not quite sure if there's like a class between a Arigashu and a samurai that's like a step above regular Arigashu. I'm not quite sure. But again, I suppose that you, theoretically, if you wanted to better his chances of survival, you could probably wear armor that's similar to that of a samurai, and likewise, a man-at-arms wearing armor that's similar to that of a knight probably could get away with it, providing that they were smart enough not to claim themselves as a samurai or a knight. It's possible they could get away with it. And, well, but as for who would win in a fight, like I said, I don't know. Because the purpose of the armor is to protect the wearer. And seems like the armor did its job for the most part. Because armor makers kept on making them. Soldiers kept on wearing it. Must have done something. And of course, in areas where the armor failed, and, well, obviously, there's an incentive to improve that kind of armor. And sometimes it's like, let's take a look at the armor. Like, say, what you need to figure out which areas need more protection. Now, you get hit in the arm, you're fine, you're good. You may not be able to use it, but you'll be able to live. On the other hand, if the armor if you get a hole right here, and it goes all the way through, you might have an issue or three. depending on which centimeter off the the injury is. I mean, if it's up here, you might be okay. I'm not quite sure. I wouldn't be surprised, although I wouldn't be surprised if this hit something important. On the other hand, you hit down here. Well, again, I'm not quite sure how important this getting hit here would be. Probably still hurt, but if you get hit right in the center of your heart, forget it. You're dead. Because depending on what you get hit with, it's just going to mess it right up. So, you'd want to have as much protection there as possible. And now, let's take a look at improvised armor a little bit. Like sporting equipment. Could that make decent armor? Well, since we don't have guys wearing hockey pads going out in the field of battle and coming back with a lot of gunshot injuries, well, walking back, that is, not a good idea to wear for that. On the other hand, this decent chest protection, shoulder protection helmet, could that be useful? Like I said, in the full-scale modern combat, no. Terrible idea. On the other hand, you could have them, that same sort of thing. Well, if, say, you're in a zombie apocalypse and you're dealing with zombies, which just tend to just grab and bite, that kind of armor might be a viable form of protection, when you're dealing with zombies, because, and also if you're dealing with a guy that's wielding knives and blunt objects, maybe that person would be fine. Because that stuff will cushion a blow from a blunt object. Somebody ramming into you, you're getting hit by a 100+ pound object that's going at least 10 miles an hour trying to hit you. Well, you're going to want that, well, it should protect you decently from, say, a baseball bat. Knives, well, a pocket knife, or any knife that's got a blade about yay long, depending on how thick the padding is, should be just fine. Now, a chef's knife that's about yay big, I'm sorry, but you're dead. But like I said, a short knife that's about yay big, with a blade that goes from here to here, should at least provide decent protection. It's still gonna penetrate. It might penetrate through the padding, and it might penetrate into your flesh a bit, but it shouldn't be deep enough to be a serious injury. It's gonna hurt. And I've been stabbed before, so I would know about that. Had a little accident involving a knife throwing incident. Got one right in my foot. Whew. And it hurt. And of course, we've all had the bagel fiasco where you accidentally cut your finger. Or your brother sharpening their knife and you move your hand a little closer. Yeah! I've had that experience before. Say nothing about other incidents where you accidentally cut yourself. It's going to hurt. But wearing even like say, well, like wearing sporting equipment, like say hockey pads and the like. You get that set up right, you might be able to survive a knife blow. And your characters, therefore, might survive a knife blow. Might also survive being hit by a baseball bat or some other blunt object. That being said, I don't expect these guys to go up against somebody armed with a good firearm. I'm sorry, but wearing hockey pads to protect yourself against a gunman, not a good idea. Now, against an archer, maybe. I'm not sure. I would have to test it out with a target practice. If I find some spare hockey pads and decide to put it on my brother's archery target. And it's like, you sure you want me to do this? Yeah, I want to know if it could actually go through. Well, I don't know. But in any case, armor, you're probably going to have your soldiers, when you're making a fantasy, when you're making a story, it's usually a good idea to have you guys wearing armor. Because, one, it's going to save their lives. Two, it's going to protect them. And you do your armor up right, you can look pretty cool. Well, that's it for this episode of Fantasy Reality. See you later.